Welcome to the Event Life Podcast, where we dive into the live event scene and have conversations with the people who make them happen. I'm your host, Esteban Quadros, and I'm joined by the ever-insightful co-host, Jessica Barrett, and we're excited to share the conversation with you. Enjoy. Drew Gneiser.
That's me.
Is that the way to say it? Okay,
That's the correct way to say it.
Cool. Because it's spelled crazy, and I was a little unsure.
I've heard everything.
What's the worst version of it you've heard?
People sticking weird consonants in there and
Genesser.
Genesit. Like you're like, what are we doing here? This is a weird name, but it shouldn't be that.
It's not that bad. I just thought like maybe the G is silent and it's Gneiser.
That's the second. That's the worst, the best mispronunciation. I should say.
And that's I thought
place.
initially it was Gneiser, but Gneiser. Yeah. You're the host and organizer of Creative Mornings, which is a morning breakfast lecture, which is kind of cool and interesting just in and of itself. And you feature some of the best and brightest designers, entrepreneurs, musicians, etc. And you're also a social media strategist.
That's correct.
Nice.
To have a multi-variety life.
That is a variety. I guess just to kick it off, like how did you get into the Creative Mornings thing that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, our chapter of Creative Mornings, which I'll talk about maybe more in a bit, in Minneapolis was founded about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So at the very beginning, I didn't know anything about Creative Mornings. I wasn't part of it for a few events. And I had a designer friend in town who was volunteering with Creative Mornings, say, like, you got to come to this thing. It's really cool. It's awesome. We have speakers. There's breakfast. And I couldn't go. And she said, but you got to come. It's the Brother Ali is the speaker, who is a pretty well-known like hip-hop artist in town here. And he was like their fourth or fifth speaker ever.
Cool.
And I was like, I can't go. And a few weeks later, she came to me and she said, our speaker for next month dropped out. Can you speak last minute? I was like, wait, after Brother Ali? I mean, I'd done a little bit of
You're
speaking.
You're the following act. Yeah, that's
I'd been on a few podcasts and guest blogs. And, I just say yes to stuff like that. But I was like, sure. Yeah. So I spoke kind of last minute, told some stories, whatever. It was, still early stages. And kind of like a lot of things in life, I just started saying yes to more things. Like they wanted me to help with marketing and looking for speakers and different things. So I just got more involved and then eventually took over as the host a few years down the road. So I think I've been a host since about 2016, which means basically that I lead the morning, the event, and then I organize and lead a team to help do all the stuff. So it's not me doing everything. We have a volunteer team that does everything from picking venues to coaching speakers to getting breakfast and coffee to setting up signs. And now here we are like 10 years later. It's so weird.
What was your first speech? Or like the speech that you gave?
I gave?
Yeah.
So every Creative Mornings has a theme that's chosen by a different chapter around the world, and then everybody speaks on that theme.
Oh, interesting.
So
I didn't know that.
I think my theme was hidden, and I was like,
ooh.
I was like, wait, can I pick? I didn't even have the concept of maybe I should pick a different theme that matched me or something. They were just we need a speaker. There's nobody in 2 weeks.
What do we mean by that? Hidden.
Hidden. Well, that's the thing with these themes. You can kind of take it a lot of directions. Okay. You go. Does it mean a hidden talent? Does it mean something? So I kind of took it in the direction of telling a lot of random stories and then literally on its face being like, why did I just tell you a bunch of random stories? To me, they're very normal things that I've experienced or done in my life. I went to the Philippines and did this. I went and did this. I've worked with bands and all this. And I said, a lot of creativity is about unhiding the things that seem so obvious to you and sharing those with other people. Whatever, it really wasn't that clever. Don't go watch it.
It sounds deep.
It was fine. You had to find some way to hook it together.
Sure.
Yeah. Talk about basically a lot of what I was doing and what a lot of Creative Morning speakers do is just share their story. What have you learned through your creative journey? How have you collaborated with people? When have you failed? When have you succeeded? How have you changed your mind about things? We've had a lot of speakers who speak. Yeah. They're in the middle of a career change. I'm literally quitting my dream job and going to go do something else. And so there's a lot of commonalities and stuff, and then layer on top of that those themes too. So
how do you come up with the speakers? Is it a group that decides it or just...
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it really starts with curiosity. So for us, we are a group that is out and about in the community. We go to other events. We go to other panels. We read articles. We keep our ears and eyes open on social media and just try to find people that like are standing out or have something unique to say.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of like this kind of thing, like talking to people.
I was gonna say it sounds a lot like what we're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
a
ask
little
them,
bit.
like, ask
We
them
do
their
the late
story.
night. You do the early mornings.
Yeah,
we do
right.
the late nights.
This
Like,
is why I've never been to
I have had
Creative
a
Mornings.
few. have had a few people tell me like, tell me when you start creative evenings. I'm like, okay, Dessa.
that's actually funny though.
Creative
But
evenings.
we just kind of we sit with people. We get a lot of suggestions from our community. We have those 12 events in a year, one every month, and we think, who lines up with these themes? What is like pertinent right now? What are the kinds of topics and stories? And obviously, and like honestly, like at the end of the day, if I'm sitting with someone having coffee and I'm just like, I want to like be here for 3 hours, let's figure out a way to turn it into a 20-minute talk because it's just so compelling.
Yeah.
The way they talk about their creativity or the things that like bug them that not enough people are talking about. And so we do a lot of that. And then, our team discusses it and kind of works on it together and makes the best decisions that we can for the event going forward. So
That's awesome. Is there any like, I mean, you must learn so much from these people. How early in the morning are we talking?
Okay, so
It is a little rough, but it's good.
So here's the thing: I am not actually a morning person either, but it is
Once a month.
exciting.
Once a month you can
Once
do
a
it.
month
Yeah.
I can do it. It isn't exciting. The way it works is usually like the third Friday of the month. It's always on a Friday, but usually the third. And we have our events from about 8:30 to 10. People come.
Okay, that's not bad.
It's
That's not bad at
terrible.
all.
It's
I
not
mean, I'm there
7 a.m.
earlier of setting stuff
Sure.
up, but we have people come, they get coffee, they get breakfast. Hopefully they get to engage with each other, talk to each other.
Yep.
There's some, ways
Good
for them-
networking.
ways for them to connect on jobs. We have like a collaboration station and all this different stuff.
Nice.
And then we get like going with the talk portion around 9, and usually by like 10 it's over. So we have a little 20-25 minute talk, kind of like TED Talk style. Usually time for Q&A, usually time for me to be up front and like banter with people and give some announcements and thank sponsors. And so it's a pretty quick, like tight timeline for the event. Yeah.
Is it always at the same spot or you guys bounce around?
Well, that's what we really love about the Twin Cities too, is like there's so many cool locations and venues.
Yeah.
I talked to some of our other Creative Mornings chapters around the country, and they're like, we only have one room that can fit enough people that we can draw, so we only go to
That's
one
kinda
spot.
crazy,
Or we go
yeah.
to one spot because honestly, logistically, it is way easier to do when you can go to one place and have a closet at the place to store all your stuff instead of my living room,
And reinventing it every single time, right?
But I think the advantage and the pros of it for us really outweigh still like taking people into theaters and colleges and breweries, and imagine another space that's open that has the ability to have, chairs and all that kind of different stuff in there. It's just really cool it's kind of like I've been saying lately. It's like, when you go on vacation to a new city and you just have this like heightened awareness of everything around you as you're soaking it up. It's a little, hopefully, what you get with Creative Mornings, when it's like, I've never been to the Mixed Blood Theater.
Yeah.
I've never been to MCAD. I've never been to the Hollywood Theater.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, that's a cool way to just get people kind of aware and engaged for the morning, because we want people to be there to engage with each other and with the speaker. So that's like
super cool.
That's the starting way we do it.
We hosted the Minneapolis Doors Open event at the Hollywood last weekend.
Yeah.
And which is partially why my voice is trash, because I thought like, who knows how many people will get, like 100, 200, 300, over 1,000 people come through, and 800 of them wanted to talk to me about it. And so it was really interesting, but it's like people were telling me about some of the other spaces they got to see, like they could do tours of the Star Tribune building and like learn all these fun facts about that. And there was a space you were telling me that you guys hosted at that, as someone who I feel like knows all the venues in town, I was like, I've never heard of it. Was the museum like a garment museum or?
Goldstein.
Yeah.
Rhymes with design. I
Yes.
just have to do that in my head. Instead of Goldstein, it's Goldstein Museum of Design. It's on the St. Paul U of M campus. It's not even like a venue so much as it's a big classroom, and there's several spaces, but they were really, really excited to engage with us because we bring creatives in. They're like really passionate about creatives. And again, maybe a lot of people haven't been to that part of the U of M campus. Even if you went to the U, to be able to bring people in and be like, this is also a museum that's open to the public all the time, and they have one of the largest collection of like clothing and garments like in the world.
Isn't that crazy?
Or the
That's
country.
really cool.
Fact check me on that. But
or
it's
just,
a huge, huge
regionally.
collection.
Either way, it's a lot.
It's a huge.
lot.
It's cool. It's like, oh, this is, and then and also, not just it's like we're in a new space and I can come here. Other times, but it's like, oh, I'm kind of like a little more, even more proud of where I live because I understand it more. That context is huge, I think. So.
That's really cool. How do you get the speakers? Like, how do you get in touch with someone like Brother Ali and be like, yo,
all sorts
wake
of
up
ways.
early and come speak? I mean, like, he would be like the opposite of that.
I mean, all sorts of ways. It's come everything from someone being like, this person is my friend, to us sliding into people's DMs, to us hitting them up on LinkedIn, to us seeing them at another event and like saying we're part of Creative Mornings. I mean, some of these people we've been emailing for years and haven't heard back, but we're still like, eventually we'll get Bob Dylan. we're not gonna get him. He's too finicky. But that's kind of it too. Is like we're like, who is from here? We all of our speakers, if I didn't say it, are local. So they have to be from here.
You should get Brian Setzer.
Yeah, exactly. You're like,
he
okay,
played at a wedding.
How am I going to get Brian? Well, I don't know. I know some people at First Avenue. Maybe that's it.
So jump the jive.
It's about using our creativity really and being like, if we want this to happen, we have to really be like pursuing them. And really what we try to do too is like find ways to be involved in their things. Maybe they do events other places. Maybe they have a following and we can become kind of a part of their community, or saying we are literally wanting you to speak so you can like talk about what you're passionate about, your cause. Like, who do you want to bring into this? And so it's all sorts of ways, but it's not always easy.
Have you slid into Cisco's DMs yet?
We haven't.
Let me see.
Now I know what he's passionate about. So,
but I still don't really understand why he lives here. But
his
it's cool.
wife's from here.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, they like live in like Apple Valley, I think.
Right.
Or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So this is fun. Yeah. We also don't have speakers repeat. So if you speak, you speak.
If you screw it up, you're done.
Well, but it's a do-over. It makes us go, okay,
yep.
We had this person
We
speak.
needed a fresh speaker every time.
We need fresh ideas, fresh perspectives. There's always people moving here, moving in and out. They're, starting new crafts or just doing different things, and being, over 10 years, it's like we've never had a repeat. So it's a challenge.
And every month over 10 years. So like, I mean, obviously there was some gaps there with COVID stuff, but like roughly 120 different speakers. Like that's
a lot. Yeah.
A lot. Yeah.
So you do learn a lot. You're like, oh, you're an architect, you're a chef, you're a beekeeper, you're a vegan butcher, you're a singer. Like it's all sorts of things.
There's really no like limit on, as long as it's creative.
Yeah. And I think there's like a certain, if you've come to enough Creative Mornings, you see that there are certain ways we coach the speakers. We don't want them to just get up and be like, here's my portfolio with all of my perfect designs. It's like, tell us a little bit of like, what made you want to be a designer when you were 5?
Tell us the weird facts, the weird stuff.
What was the thing you tried and it really didn't work? Or what is something you're really frustrated about? And not just about frustration, but that's often a passion point, right?
Yeah.
So there's some commonality in the way that we kind of coach people through putting together their talks. But really, at the end of the day, is like we're looking for people that are have a perspective and want to have something to say.
For sure,
kind of stand out a little bit in that way,
right?
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, and really, like, we're talking. This is about events, right? We're events people talking about events and people who do events. And you're not, that's maybe not like your primary focus, but you do an event that is really cool and are involved in that side of things. And I think getting different perspectives within the industry is really interesting. I feel like you and I had this conversation one time when we were sitting having coffee about how there's people in the events industry, like Esteban and I, and then there's the people in like marketing who do events, but it feels like we're in two different worlds. And there's people in like PR that do events, but it feels like a different world, or advertising.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, how do we not connect more? But it's just like we come at events from such different perspectives.
Yeah, it's like a lens. It's like, oh, my lens is operationally, I think, about, the order of events and if you're a good event person, you should be thinking about all of it, or have a team that can think about all of it, obviously. But like, it definitely, or like, I think probably a lot of it comes out of what is the purpose of you holding the event. Like, I want to get new clients, or I want to create community, whatever that means sometimes. Even for us, we're like, okay, how do we know if we're doing that?
Yeah.
But a lot of it probably comes out of the purpose you're coming at it from, probably too.
That actually brings an interesting thought. How do you like measure success with something like Creative
Mornings? I set myself up, didn't I?
Yeah, a little bit. Sorry. What are your KPIs for this?
My KPIs. Our KPIs.
What is KPIs?
Key performance
indicators.
Yes.
Marketing term. And I am a marketer, and marketers are the worst. So here we go. No, I think it is tough to measure. I mean, for us, we're looking at a few things. We're looking kind of like, what are our internal KPIs? What are our external KPIs? It would be really easy to just say, like, we had a ton of people come to the event. And certainly the competitive part of me, it's not even competitive. The part of me that wants lots of people to see this awesome speaker and be around community wants that number to grow to a point.
Right.
Before the pandemic, we were doing like 250 to 350 person events.
What? That's so hard to find
sizable.
Space for. Yeah.
Yeah. We're around like 150 to 200 now as we're like building back up and letting people know we're coming back and being really, really patient with it. So some of it can be we measure like show rate. So like it's a free event. So as people grab tickets, how many of those people show up? I think generally hover around 70% or something like that, which I think is
good turnout
pretty
for
good.
A free event, yeah, especially a morning one.
Internally, it's just kind of more about like, we try to do a lot of feedback with the team of like, what can we improve like 1% better next time? How can we make this a little smoother? How can we have a little bit of a better relationship with this venue? How can we do that kind of stuff? So, I mean, we have all sorts of other KPIs. We have like our open rate on our emails it's pretty bragworthy. I'm not gonna lie. It's like 50%
that's
on like
really
a 5,000 person email list. So that. We're starting to ramp up our social media again, like are people engaging? But really at the end of the day, it's hard to measure, but the thing that I love the most is like, are we hearing and collecting stories of people that are connecting with each other? When I sat down with our speaker from, I think she was our March speaker, she had been attending actually our events for a little bit, and I asked her to speak. And she was like, oh, did you know, by the way, I met someone at Creative Mornings and like went and did something as friends. And she was also like, oh, I also got a freelance job from Creative Mornings. It's like really tangible things of like building relationships, building connections.
The things that the metrics don't necessarily show, but
so it's like, can we over time gather those kinds of stories? And that to me is like probably the best metric.
100%.
And that's probably where being like, all right, how are we collecting those?
You're making a difference.
Are we doing surveys? Are we sitting down with regular attendees for coffee that have been there 20 plus times and asking them about that kind of stuff? Because I've been surprised sometimes. I'm like, wait, you got a job from Creative Mornings? So why didn't you tell me like right away? That's the stuff that gets me fired up. And it's just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it's just because you're creating community. I thought you like kind of knew that.
Yeah, that you knew that was just a given, right? Yeah.
Those are the gifts, I think, that like...
That's awesome.
Like, yes.
You have to have so much, I imagine, of that sort of like gift that comes to you in order to continually do a volunteer role to create something like this monthly. Because that's a big task.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean...
Just the consistency alone is hard. I mean, even us like releasing an episode every 2 weeks, it takes a lot of...
Yeah. We definitely haven't been perfect. We've made mistakes. We've had months where we couldn't do it, especially coming back from the pandemic. But I've always said it's like, at least for me, I think everybody on our team gets a different thing out of it. They might just like feel really good volunteering. They might make those connections. For me, I'm like, it's always kind of been this like sneaky excuse to like be like, I want to meet you. Sound awesome. I work for Creative Mornings, and I'm not abusing that in a way of like I'm just doing it to whatever. But I'm like, oh, I can go and sit down with all the interesting people. And I think at the end of the day, when I say that out loud, anybody can actually really do that if they want to.
Yeah,
if
but
you're
you have
curious.
the intention behind it, and having a little bit of like having something with a little bit of clout that gives you some like
right.
It gives you a little bit of a foot in the door, which is amazing. But you have to have the internal like curiosity to want to do that, which I don't think everybody does, or like the confidence to be able to just be like, hey, like, can we have coffee?
That's true. That's fair.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of been one of the rewards for me. And I have also made friends from Creative Mornings. I have also gotten jobs from Creative Mornings. I have also like ended up loving the Twin Cities more because I understand it more and more and more every time I go out to a new venue, new place, go into some artist's studio, sit down and have a conversation. So it's like, that's fun for me and rewarding.
Are you not from Minnesota?
I'm a dual citizen, kind of, I guess, of the Midwest. I was born on the East Coast, and then I grew up mostly in Wisconsin. And then I moved over here during college. So I think I have lived here longer than Wisconsin, but like, I don't know. How do you answer that? Where are you from? Do you go where you were born, where you were?
I'm from everywhere, I feel like.
Yeah.
I was born in Mexico, so it's like, I was like, where are you from? I'm like, I grew up west of here an hour, but I was born in Mexico, so it's a weird conversation to have, I feel like. Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's not that hard, I guess, but it feels weird saying it sometimes.
Well, it's kind of hard to be like, like, where do you identify with when someone asks that? Is it like your formative years of, like, often for people, high school and childhood, or is it like where you now are like, this is where I'm from, or does it depend on who's asking you? At least that, for me, it usually does.
Usually for me, it depends on who's asking.
I'm from here.
Or how much I want to talk. like
from this world.
I'm from Minnesota. I like, a lot of times I'll just say I'm from Minneapolis if I don't want to get into it, but I'm like, usually I just say I'm from like super rural Minnesota, which sometimes people are like, okay, and like they don't care, Other times people are like, where? Like they want to know more, or they're from somewhere. Like I don't think I knew that you were from kind of like a small town in Minnesota until like fairly recently, and then I was like, oh.
Well, and see, and that's what's funny to me. You say from, and I'm really not from there. I just was a transplant to there.
But you moved there when you were pretty young.
I was like 6 months old or something.
Yeah. but still, yes, I get it.
It's first 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a terrible 6 months. But going back to the Creative Mornings thing, like, what was the original? Do you like? You said you weren't part of the initial beginning of it, but like, what was the original like goal? Like, who set out for the mission, and like, what was the mission? And like, are you still searching for what that is, or is it pretty defined?
I think it's pretty well established. So going back even before we were a chapter, Creative Mornings was founded in New York, by a designer named Tina Roth Eisenberg. You might know her as Swiss Miss, as like her social handles.
Okay. Wait, like the butter knife thing?
Not like the cocoa.
The cocoa.
None of that. No. She's a Swiss.
Yeah, that's
I'm like, what are you talking
there
about?
There was like a
Swiss Army knife.
Tina will never hear this, so she would die if she heard this. Tina's like, she's a designer, and she was in Brooklyn in a co-working space, and kind of like wanting community around her, wanting to be surrounded by cool people and do it with people. But one of the things she kind of noticed is like the event scene for what she was seeing was like a lot of stuff at night, a lot of stuff that costs money, and a lot of stuff that's like, this is for UI people, this is for photographers. So like really narrow slices of creativity. So she was just like, I don't know
a broader stroke.
If it was a strategic move of being like seeing an opportunity, but she's like, all right, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do it in the morning, Creative Mornings, big surprise there. I'm going to make it free. It's like built on generosity. You come, it feels like a gift. It feels like there's no strings attached. There's no tricks there. And everyone's creative as part of our Creative Mornings manifesto now, which sounds creepy at first, but it's a good manifesto, you guys.
It's a good one, yeah.
So we read this at every event, and it starts with everyone is creative, and it ends with everyone is welcome. And the idea of everyone is creative is that if you have that curiosity, and especially if you believe it, you can find creative ways of doing things in every single discipline, including ones that are not like on the face something really, really creative. So she holds this first event in Brooklyn in her co-working space. I don't even know if there was a speaker at the first one. It's kind of early days forming. She always says like the coffee was late and whatever, but we were together. And so she starts like hosting this every single month, just like really, informally and getting people together. And her designer friends around the country start going like, hey, can I do this in LA? Can I do this in wherever? And it starts to, other chapters start to form other places. And so she starts building a team. I think Creative Mornings Minneapolis was the 60th chapter ever. And now there are close to 275 chapters all around the world.
Wow.
Closest ones around here are places like Chicago, Milwaukee, Fargo, Kansas City. So there's like in most
Fargo, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So in most like cities, there is a Creative Mornings chapter that is founded to be like how do we support creativity locally here by showcasing speakers and going, what does our community need? Who do we partner with to do it? So as you can imagine, it looks really cool. Very, very familiar everywhere because there's kind of this Creative Mornings brand and everyone's creative, everyone's welcome. But there's also looks very different in Cape Town versus Montreal versus Singapore versus Fargo. Which is really, really cool. So yeah, the mission really is to support and inspire and connect the local creative community, help people to feel, I think, not to go on another tangent, the world is complicated right now. And there aren't as many spaces that I see that feel like you can go and feel inspired and welcome and safe and challenged, and you can disagree with something, and that's okay. So sometimes, you're going to disagree with the speaker. Yep. And having that space in our 2024 world, I think a lot of people are trying to create that right now, but we find it really, really important for our mission of this is a place you're going to come every month. You might see some people that might see some new people that you don't know, might hear a speaker that you had no idea existed in our community, and then leave and hopefully take that back into your creative work or your workplace or your family or your friend group. So that's what we do. That's awesome.
How is putting on a free event every month is it difficult finding a space, finding the speaker? I'm sure, someone like Brother Ali again, he probably would make money doing something like that somewhere else. So it's what does the ask look like?
There's you guys are event people. There's a million things that go into events.
People just want to be a part of it.
People want to be a part of it. We have, my volunteer team working on all of the facets, but really for us, there's a lot of ways to get sponsors and a lot of ways to get people involved in events. And I always try to keep us grounded in just in the same way we're creating a community with our attendees, we need to be creating a community with our partners and the people we work with. We need to like them, and we want to hang out with them, and we want to be I'm on stage and telling you this bakery that gave us food this morning is dope. They're awesome. This is a woman-owned bakery. Yeah. We met with the owner. She's really cool. And, you don't get to know everything about everybody, but over time you build those relationships. And so hopefully it gets a little easier in some ways because you're I can call the person up at this venue and they will be let's talk about this really quick. And it doesn't, but that takes time. That takes those things. But yeah, for speakers, you mentioned too, it can be challenging too. We don't pay our speakers. That's just part of the Creative Mornings model to keep it free. I don't get paid. Speakers don't get paid. And we try to keep a lot of the, whenever we have sponsors, it's about the relationship.
And I'm not even hating. I think that's cool. I think the giving back thing is where I'm going with it. And I think that's really cool that it's that sense of community and being part of just, I think creatives, just being able to talk about what we're doing or helping somebody else on their journey. And I think that's really cool, the giving back factor of all the angles of, both the speaker, but what you guys are doing, the mission behind it all. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, we try to do a lot of in-kind, and that being also said, it's really important, and we're working on what would it look like to have other ways to have funding and support for our partners, because money is also important in creativity.
Right.
It can be we're doing this. Yeah, we're doing this for art and connection, and you are. And a lot of the food partners we've had over the years were starting their food company, and we're you can come and be in front of 200 or 300 amazing, creative, connected people that will go out and support you if they're able to, and that's a huge marketing thing or whatever. But it's at some point too, you want to be money also helps.
I think it's cool though because there's that exposure element, and I know as a musician, it's always exposure doesn't pay the bills, homie, or whatever. But it's but for a lot of companies, that exposure actually really can do a lot.
Well, it's a delicate balance. It's okay, well, I can't just live on exposure, but also if no one knows you,
right?
100%.
And you have a huge base. That's the thing that I think is a 5,000 person mailing list with 50% open. It's pretty impressive.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, not at all. And I also think because we were introduced by someone. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was maybe a past speaker or something.
Jen Trebizovsky, I think, maybe.
Or whatnot.
I don't remember who it was. Right. It's funny because it's you've built those connections. So actually, no, now that I think of it, I had 3 different people reach out to me about Creative Mornings in a like 1 week span because you guys didn't have a venue or the venue fell through. And so there was something posted about it that like they were going to have to cancel because they didn't have a venue. And I had 3 different people be like, you need to help him find a venue. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Wait, who is this person? I don't know him.
I know. I was like, I don't know if I can help this short of notice, but like, let me connect. And we started talking and I was like, oh no, like that's like, I want to help. And I feel like you've created such intentional community with it that like everyone's rooting for it, you know? Like that's the sense I get from the people who go to it really often or very much like acolytes of it, or like they're rooting for this. They want it to succeed. And so they want to help you make those connections. And I can say that even from someone who hasn't even attended one yet, that as soon as we started talking about it, I was like, well, let me see if I can help you find this or that, or, you know, like we're going to host, and this will probably come out after your next Creative Mornings, which is on May 31st at the Hollywood Theater, which is a space that we manage. But as soon as we started talking, I was like, yeah, let's do it there. Like, why not? That would be a great fit. And it's great for us because like the best marketing you can get as a venue is people in the door, right? They see it, they experience it. That's like just like you can't beat that in print advertisement or whatever and social media in any way. So the number of people that you turn out for this is impressive, especially on such a consistent basis. And you have such a strong like community of people that are like part of it or attendees. And so as a person who hasn't gone to it, but hearing about it, like there's so much value there that I think is really obvious very quickly.
It's like, it's a combination of a strong brand that has like the imprint of Tina, our founder's heart on it. Like it's like her baby. It's the consistency of doing it for years and years and years. It's like dozens of volunteers that I've had over the years. So it's not just me. I just want to be like humble about it and make sure I say that. Like we've had so many people pour into this, and the Twin Cities, I think people find this everywhere with Creative Mornings, but like the Twin Cities community, we love to brag a little bit that we are so generous. And like, it's like people do want to help each other. Yeah. And sometimes they're afraid to ask and go out there and do that kind of thing. But I think we have found it's like every single venue for 10 years gave us their space for free. That's, even if it's a great marketing opportunity, it's still like, it's awesome.
It's still people's time and energy, and it's 100%. Still
people have been so good to us, and believing in like it being a vehicle to do other things, whether that's even sometimes just to bring people in. I'm a big believer in the collaboration versus competition thing. I think a lot more people could be like sharing ideas, contacts, whatever, and it's like we all grow together in that way. It's not a limited pie of attention and resources. So
we were just at an ILEA meeting earlier this week. Drew was there as well, and my friend was the speaker. She's from Chicago, Emerald Jane Hunter. She's with My White Agency, and she was asking, because she's like, I speak at a lot of things, and it's not always this high caliber. Like it's not always this nice, you know, like we had linens and we had florals and we had lunch and all this stuff. And she's like, and this is all like volunteer stuff, and these are all different people in the same industry. And she's like, how does it not get competitive? Like, how do people not become like crabs in a bucket kind of mentality, you know? And I just thought, I don't know, there's something about Minneapolis, St. Paul that I feel like maybe is strong other places too, but it feels exceptionally strong here, that people are willing to collaborate rather than compete in different ways that I don't think that you get everywhere.
I think the 3 things that pop into my mind are that like universally people want to be together. Yeah. Like there's such power in events. It's meaningful. It's when you're connected and stuff. And like, you know I'm an obnoxious extrovert. And so it's not always the same for everybody, but I believe that for everybody, there is something about being together. The other things I've heard though from Creative Morning speakers, like we had a hip hop artist one time tell me like he had lived all over the country, and he's like, there is no place that collaborates like the Twin Cities, because you can go over to someone's house and like have a beer, and then all of a sudden you're writing an album together. And then I was like, oh, we also had people speak from the game board design community. I don't know if you know, there's a huge game board design community in the Twin Cities.
I just recently learned about this, and it's very interesting.
Like massive. And it's like, why is that? Oh, it's because we're inside for so much of the year.
Oh, that's so legit.
We were like, okay, let's get creative and make cool stuff and play together.
Yeah.
So it's like there's kind of some like natural things with our weather and with our all the other factors combined that makes us, I think, collaborative in a way. Even though I also have a lot of people tell me like it's so hard to meet people in the Twin Cities too. There's that whole thing.
There is a real interesting dichotomy with that. Is like that we have that reputation as being very giving, very collaborative, but also very cliquey and very like, you know, like you make your friends in like, you know,
in kindergarten
and then never again. And
I was the opposite.
I know. I was like, I moved high schools when I was 15, and so I feel like I was, when I went to this other high school, I was the new girl for 2 years, you know, because it was a very, very small rural area. And it's like, oh, you all went to like, you know, daycare together, and I'm the new girl at 15. So I always feel sympathetic for transplants here because it can be so hard. But I think that some of it is that you just have to look for those opportunities, and like Creative Mornings is a great option.
Yeah, we're a little small part of changing that, hopefully, where we're like, you know, it's cool to meet new people, and it's cool to be exposed to new stuff. And we try to have our volunteers be like really friendly. I host much like I'm talking right now.
Yeah.
And we have people like, oh, you make us just feel like comfortable. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it on purpose because I don't want it to be rigid and stale and boring or whatever. And like, you know, I want you to come and be like, oh, they're humans.
Yeah. And I'm welcome here.
And I'm welcome here. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I think the collaboration aspect too, it puts people on an even playing field a little bit. Or if you're kind of an up and comer and you get to collaborate with somebody who you admire as like they're on some shit that I want to be on, it puts you on a similar level, and it helps kind of raise the ship essentially. Yeah. It's like the rising tide thing.
Well, especially when you're talking about creative fields too. It's like we were talking about this a little bit with Chef Corey about how sometimes if you get like such tunnel vision, or you feel so confident that you know what's right, that you miss opportunities for what is possible. And creativity is not a top-down game. It's often a bottom-up game. Like a lot of creativity and innovation comes from younger folks or newer to the market because they aren't constrained by the same boundaries necessarily. And so they don't feel like they have to do it a certain way, and they can look at it and be like, well, why not this? And then if you're like an OG, somebody like myself, and you're like, oh shit, that's smart. I didn't ever think of that, you know? But if you're not like open to that kind of creativity.
Well, and I think real creativity also comes from like stealing things from disciplines that are not yours.
Oh yeah.
So it's like we have a massive theater community in the Twin Cities. We have a massive poster design community, game board design, like I said, all of these. And it could be really cliquey, and it is oftentimes. It's like this kind of discipline just sticks with that discipline. But what we've found of why we also have different sort of speakers is like you can learn a lot from a beekeeper about like how communication in colonies works. It was fascinating.
That does sound fascinating.
You can learn a lot from an architect. You can learn a lot from these different kinds of disciplines and then steal it. We've had, you know, attendees be like, that was super inspiring. This is what I did with it. I learned from this game board designer this principle about play and illustrations and symbolism, and I took it over into my law firm and like did this for my clients and designed this whole experience. So and it's like, yes, I think that's so huge too.
Is there any like speeches that you've like that you remember that just like really blew your mind? Like those like holy shit moments where you're like, what we're doing is awesome.
I love them all. They're all great. A lot of people have become friends and stuff. You know, ones that stand out to me, like, do you guys know Mary Jo Hoffman?
Yeah. She
was an astrophysicist who now is like a creative, and she has been running a blog called Still for over 10 years, where she's taken a still nature photo every single day and posted it on her blog consistently. Just came out with a book about a month ago. She came in like last minute as a speaker because we had a speaker drop out. She's like, I can do it. And she's like, met with me on a Tuesday before the Friday event and like ran through her slides with me. And it was like, I've had her speak at other things that I've done before now too. And like every time I hear her speak, she's humble and smart and inspiring about like creative disciplines and practices. Other speakers, Bobby Rogers in town, if you don't know him, he's really amazing. He put together an awesome talk that had snippets of video and music and poetry and his story, and it was beautiful, and people were crying. I always love listening to Chef Ye Vang talk, and he like told his immigrant story and his father's story and why food matters so much to him. Food people are like my people, so anytime there's a food person, I love it. But yeah, I mean, I could pick, like, I think most of them are pretty good. I like, every year I'm like, oh man, that was great, that was great, and it's just been really cool to like go back and even see people who now, like, I just ran into a speaker 2 days ago. She spoke about 6 years ago. She's like, oh man, I haven't seen you in so long. I just rewatched my talk.
I was going to ask,
and I was like,
recorded.
Oh man, I felt like kind of embarrassed about this part, but then also like tender towards my younger self where I was at in this. And I was like, I realized I needed to hear some of that again because I'm thinking about this and that. And it was just like,
that's really cool. So they are recorded.
They're recorded, yep.
And then where do they play?
CreativeMornings.com. There are thousands and thousands of talks. CreativeMornings.com/MSP is specifically where our video library is.
I did go and watch a bunch of them, actually, after you sent them. And then I was like, I might have to steal some of these speakers for Ilea.
Yeah. And I mean, I've like often done that where I'm like, go to speak at this event, or I've organized other events for other organizations and just been like, I'm bringing you with me, Mary Jo Hoffman, or I'm bringing you with me, Karin Tomlinson, or just different people. And
you have to look at it for guests for here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm already thinking about it. So how does like all the social media aspects like play into your like, so because you're only doing one event a month, that you're in charge of it, kind of a thing, and then, I mean, obviously planning and everything goes into that, but like, social media is just like a regular thing you're doing, like kind of daily or weekly, or
I have a team member in my group that is, she actually came from Creative Mornings Fargo in the last year or two and moved to the cities and like emailed us and was wanting to do it. So we're working on kind of getting that going again. And she's posting, we have a lot of video content. We have a lot of photos from our speakers. Got like we photograph and video every single event, so we have all of that, and I've got hard drives of stuff. So we were daydreaming this week, like, okay, we could do this, we could start doing this again. And so we relaunched in-person events last July, and so a lot of things were just kind of getting going again. But a lot of our content revolves around like letting people know the events that are coming up, giving them a preview of what the speaker is going to be like, showing off the theme illustration for every month. That's also a thing designed that everybody can use. And so
what was the topic last month, and then what is the one coming up?
Last month, which as of right today when we're recording this, was April. The theme was spicy.
Oh,
spicy.
Who was the speaker?
We had so this is like,
who comes up with these themes?
Usually it was it's been a Creative Mornings chapter. So in the order they were founded, we all got a chance to pick a theme, and then it kind of unraveled. I think pretty soon there's going to be a little bit of a like vote and submit some theme ideas kind of thing. Okay. And then they get distributed around the world. So spicy. I think spicy was maybe chosen by like one of our chapters in like New Mexico or something. Okay. So sometimes it's like, this
like
makes
regional
sense.
sort of.
Yeah. Our speaker was Sina War. She's I'm going to get her title wrong, but she works with farmers markets all around the state. She's like an inclusion engagement director. She also has a farm. She also started a hot sauce brand this year, doing all these really interesting things.
Very literal interpretation of spicy kind of.
Yeah, that's
like,
exactly where my mind.
Someone suggested her, and we met her, and we're like, you have so many interesting things to talk about, and things in your career, and working on, like she's Cambodian, she's doing Cambodian cooking and farming, all this farming operations, all this different stuff. So it's been kind of sweet. Yeah.
And then what is the one coming up at the end of May?
The one coming up at the end of May is a MC and hip-hop poet named Tish Jones. She's been kind of on our list for a really long time, but does a lot of spoken word pieces. It is the executive director of an organization in St. Paul that works with poetry and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty excited. It's going to be cool.
I'm excited too. I'm going to go. It'll be my first time going.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I have to definitely like figure it out and go. Yeah. going back to some of the social media stuff, did you just kind of get thrown into that a little bit?
On your personal life, like not through this, right? Yeah.
Social media in my life.
Your strategist side of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm a social media strategist, and it's been, a lot of it was like when I graduated college, it was like, hey, have you heard of Twitter? It was like all the stuff was brand new. And in school, I did business and I did a lot of broadcasting and I ran a radio show and I was doing all these things and starting to incorporate like social media tools into what I was doing to promote things and to get the word out about things and crash the radio server at our college and, that kind of stuff. And I was like not taught it by any professors.
Okay.
So it was like very much a timing thing.
Well, and it's weird because if you teach it like a year ago, then next year it's like changed,
irrelevant, or has changed.
It always
quite
changes,
a bit.
and algorithms change, and like
So I slowly got into it in my career and started being like, oh, I worked at an agency and I was the young person, so they were like, do the social media stuff and the blogging. And I was like, okay, and I learned a ton, and then slowly did that in a lot of different industries. I did it in music and things like that, and then worked in social media for a couple like big nonprofits and a couple big brands like Cheerios, and worked with Facebook and helped relaunch Dunkaroos into the market when that happened a few years ago, and really kind of ended up right place, right time with a lot of this stuff, but understanding that much like events where you're trying to connect a community and create relationships with it, like that's what social media tools do. Is it's a way to communicate and be like, not interrupt everybody, but be like, who is this for? And where are they? And how do I talk to them? And what are they like? And how can I create content that speaks to them? So that's like what I do now for brands, is not just blast messages and try to be the like most viral or whatever, is being like, what is your goal as a brand? Yeah. And then from that, what platforms do you need to be on?
I love the Cheerios part of the branding. It's may lower cholesterol.
I don't know anything about that part.
It doesn't do shit for you, but I love that it may. And
a lot of things may, I guess.
I just think that's a funny. Sorry, that's a
so just getting the opportunity to do that in social media and working at an agency where I was like building strategies, building social advertising, I built internal training programs for everybody we hired, as well as for like clients, to teach them literally like as it's changing. Right. How do we stay up on trends? How do we learn all the best practices for YouTube and Instagram and all of these platforms? And so now I do it for a freelancer and work with like startups and big brands and people who are like, I don't know why my Instagram isn't working, and I'm like, okay, there's other questions to ask where we start, and that's an end result, but we really start at like, what are we trying to do here, and who are you and what are we trying to communicate? And so
break down like a general strategy, like, or how do you get into that? How do you go about like strategizing? Like what are the steps?
Okay. Well, I think a lot of it is getting.
That's a big question.
I know. I know. No, a lot of it is, people might come to me, or people might come with like this isn't working, or I want to launch understanding what business goals are. Right. Like at the end of the day, there are a lot of commonalities no matter what you're trying to accomplish as a business, where there's like social media best practices, but there's also like, just because TikTok is like the biggest thing doesn't necessarily mean that's right for your brand. So I spent a lot of time as a strategist listening at the beginning and being like, what are you trying to do? What have you done in the past? What is your, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your understanding of this, and how much am I going to need to teach versus create? What kind of resources do you have to work with? Do you have media to work with? And then crafting based on me also having this like intimate knowledge of like how every platform works, how people engage with content, what kind of things don't work. I can go, here are some things to think about. Currently, your social media, maybe if it's someone who comes to me is like, we don't have very good engagement and no one clicks on our stuff or watches our videos, I can be like, usually in 5 minutes, I can point out some stuff why. Right. Well, you're not formatting it this
your
way.
Video
and that's
sucks.
Or like, maybe you don't, a lot of people don't know. It's like right now, Instagram really likes video and they really like reels. So if most of your feed is like photos, it's something to think about. So there's immediate things you can do in strategy that, again, are best practices no matter what. And then crafting a plan of like, hey, one of your goals is this. You're not really that active on LinkedIn right now. That might be a big opportunity for you to get in front of, because you're a B2B business, get in front of other salespeople. So I'm not really breaking it down super well for you. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's a combination of understanding what they want to do.
So step one is kind of assessing the business, figuring out the needs, essentially, and who their market is.
Yeah. Who do they think their audience is, and maybe they don't even know that, which is also a big problem.
I think there's also times. Like, and this is, I am not by any means an expert, but I feel like for a while there was such an emphasis on like Instagram, like numbers, right? Like how many people follow you. Mm-hmm. And for a while it was like you couldn't follow more people than followed you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It feels like it was probably like a long time ago, but like, do people even pay attention to that? Or like how your grid looks overall versus like, you know, what just the daily content you're putting out, stuff like that is so interesting how that's evolved.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, I think what you said about like knowing where your audience is and like how they're finding you and making sure you're on what's actually relevant for you. Yeah. Like don't waste your resources on TikTok if you don't have a TikTok crowd.
A lot of people should be on TikTok because it's got it still has some of the most opportunity for growth and virality and like doing that kind of thing. But, you know, there's always exceptions to stuff too.
Right.
What do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
I think I was just going to say like about how, I think someone said this to me one time, and I don't think it's like groundbreaking by any means, but it was like, it kind of like put a light bulb over my head, which was like, if you can't go big, go small. Like going really like hyper local or hyper focused on your audience and like having a bigger impact on like a smaller group of people, but that are like more loyal, more attached to your brand. Is that something that like that you see much of, or is that not really?
I think there's this like idea that people like want to have this huge following and that they want everybody to follow them, and for some reason they like serve a Minnesota audience, let's just say, but like they don't care, they want people in California and everywhere to follow them. I used to do some like consulting with churches. Actually, this is a pretty good example. There's a lot of churches where it's like you really need to serve your neighborhood. And like it would be really cool if your messages reached all around the world and your whatever, but like that ultimately really isn't your goal. So there is kind of like a number limit kind of built into that. So it goes beyond just how many followers do you have. It's like, are those people engaging with your content? Are they commenting? Are they sharing? Are they doing whatever? And there's a lot of businesses like that too, you know, where it would be really cool to be the best, you know, just think of any brand that could be like really hyper local like that, but everybody knows us. And there are some like that, right? Like, is it the Northeast water treatment plant in Ohio? Like their Twitter is pretty fire.
Or the Ohio Department of Resource or Ohio Department of Natural Resources.
So I get that.
Their Twitter feed is the best.
So I get that inclination, right, to be like, everybody loves us because we're so funny, which is also like extremely hard to do consistently. You know, but also it's like, you know, like you have to just still have that honesty of like, are we accomplishing our business goals by reaching the right people with those messages that hopefully end up, you know, maybe not directly clicking a thing and buying, but yeah, there's a lot to it. So
what about like mistakes you see people make? Is there like, are they all overcomable? Like, can you overcome
posting about 9/11?
Posting stupid stuff, or is that a
stop doing that?
Stop posting.
Yeah, it's so weird that I have to say this, but just stop.
Yeah, like we get it. We always remember, but we can stop now. Right?
I think most of the mistakes probably, come from. This sounds like this is tough because it's not. One of the things as a social media strategist or social media person is you have to be familiar with the platforms, which means you have to be on the platforms a decent amount. And that's tricky because it can get really toxic. It's tough to separate out of your life. There's a lot of mental health things that are very, very real. That's a whole nother conversation. But, you know, knowing what, you know, posts, how they're formatted, and that when you're doing an Instagram reel, there's a certain part on the left side or the right side or top where if you put something there, it's going to be covered with buttons.
Yeah.
Like those little things I think are the biggest stuff. And just overall realizing something like, again, video is king right now. It sounds obvious to a lot of us who do marketing or events maybe, or all this kind of stuff, but like, you know, people just aren't practicing that. So those are sort of some of the mistakes. Is just like sort of like formatting, not realizing what the platform really wants. And this one is kind of one of the biggest things I see in marketing in general is something called like the burden of knowledge. Have you guys heard of this? The burden of knowledge? So the burden of knowledge is this like psychological concept that it's really hard to imagine not knowing what you know, so that when you're communicating with people, that's where a lot of the like barriers come in. So a lot of brands, I think, are so into their like knowing everything about what they do that when they're communicating, people are like, what are you talking about? So there's this miss. So I often tell people it's not that you're dumbing down your copy or your content or your videos, but you're simplifying it and you're making it clear and crystal clear. And a lot of the reason that's not happening is because you have this like database in your head of like the last 2 years of Facebook posts. And so you're like talking about all this stuff and kind of missing the fact that like
no one saw all that other shit.
People didn't see the other shit.
They don't retain it, or
they don't retain it like you did, and they don't know it like you did. So that's a really hard one. There's a lot more to unpack with that one.
It makes sense too, because like no one wants to feel redundant when they're posting or making comments or whatever. But it makes sense.
I literally like knowing what that is called is just like so amazing.
Yeah.
Like that terminology. I love learning like a phrase or a word for something that it's like I know what this is, but I don't know how exactly how to explain it. But I was having a conversation about this literally today about how I don't think I'm as effective as I used to be at training in new employees who are more green, because so many things to me are so obvious that I don't think to point them out. And then when they don't happen, I don't always know how to explain like why you would have to do that thing, because it's
hidden to other people. Hidden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, oh yeah, well duh, like of course you would do that thing. And I was like, I think I need to step away from training new employees in that way, because I'm just like not as effective as I used to be.
And it's not like you have to make every social media post like, we are this and this is what we do, and make it like
you're not always starting from scratch.
But there's something also to being like, we're an organization, we have this one principle that we really care about. What are 50 different ways that we can talk about that principle about creativity or whatever? And then that's what your content becomes, I think, sometimes. So there's a lot of ways to look at it, but that's like one that I always incorporated into my social media training courses and into all that kind of stuff, is that like, if we are not connecting with people in our communication, that is often one of the reasons, I think.
So video is king, but like...
Video's great.
Are you usually going down like a more professional route, or is it like somebody shooting it with an iPhone? Like what's...
It depends.
It's probably a
what
mix,
your brand
right?
is.
Yeah.
I think on one hand, it depends on your brand and what you're trying to convey with that stuff. But on the other, there is a level of authenticity that people want to see, that if something is too polished sometimes, for a certain audience, it won't resonate. It'll be like, this is nonsense. This looks like a commercial, or this removes me from feeling close to it. So understanding what you're shooting on in different scenarios, I think, does matter sometimes. And one that comes to mind all the time that is like really brand aligned, where it's like, we're not going to shoot this on like really fancy cameras and stuff. We're going to shoot all of this on an iPhone because that's what Heggies should look like. So when we were like shooting, we're like not bringing in ring lights and stuff. We're like going to a VFW and shooting a Heggies on the counter. Yeah, because that feels like them.
That feels
right?
very on brand. Yeah,
that was like, that's one where it matches the brand. But I think even after that, maybe it's a lot of young people, or maybe I think people in social media are starting to get really like fatigued
of like overly polished.
Yeah, and they're craving it to feel more real and authentic and like not overly rehearsed kind of stuff. So
more natural,
I don't know,
and personality based.
That's not always the right move for everybody either, too. If you're a professional video company, there's also something to be said about like what the quality of your product looks like and how that's going to make people feel.
It kind of boxes us into a thing like, do you want to put out an iPhone video? How about like a professional planning company that does luxury weddings?
Well, I would start with like, who is your client? If your client is people that have more money to spend, what kind of content do they consume and what does it look like? So I'd think about magazines and shows and other social feeds, and I would kind of go as part of my audit and look at that stuff and go, well, this Instagram account is like, you can tell they're like, it's got a big following and they're resonating with it, and like looking at stylistically how they're doing that and like stealing some of that in a way to inform your.
That makes me feel a lot better about when I do that to people.
And, not ripping off, but,
right.
There's no real, like, everything's like derivative of everything else. And so it's mood boards, and then it's inspiration, and then going like, but also like, what is our tone and voice, and not just going, we're going to do it because it's popular. I think it's a balance, and it's a tension pulling at both ends. It's like, you have to know what it looks like to do TikTok right now, but you also go, I also don't want to just blend in with everybody else. So maybe there is something unique in my presentation or my voice or tone or, stylistically what it looks like that can help me.
What's most annoying being on like a TikTok or something like that is like when you're scrolling and you see a video and it's like a trendy thing, and then you scroll later and you see somebody else doing the exact same freaking thing.
Well, you know why you saw it second time, right? You watched that first video long enough that the algorithm thinks you want to see more.
Which is crazy, and it sucks because then you're getting fed the same thing, but it's just it sucks.
Do you have like a very active, like, what's your social media intake like?
Yeah, I used to be pretty staunch on like, if you're in social media, you should have somewhat of a social media presence and be posting regularly, and I still don't not believe that, but I have very much fallen off in my like personal posting actively sort of stuff. Part of that is because I'm tired and I'm doing it for lots of clients, or I'm just doing that all day long. Part of it is because I, still use those platforms to engage in there's a whole nother layer too, is a lot of people use it to just engage in DMs or Snapchats or things that are not seen.
Yep.
Those hidden things.
But I still like consume quite a bit. Some of it's out of habit over all of the years of, following stuff and wanting to see what's going on so that I can advise clients. And some of it is, it's like designed to be addictive.
Yeah, a little doom
so
scroll.
I'm like, okay.
100%, yeah.
Whether you're doing it because you're like addicted to it, or whether you're doing it because you're like stressed and it's just like a release. Sometimes we're all there at different points. So
I feel like and this is, I think a lot of people are the same way, but I used to post so regularly on like static posts, like so regularly. Like if you go back to like the heydays when I was at Aria, I was posting like every event on there. I have such an archive of like the early days, whereas now I couldn't tell you like the last event I even took a picture at half the time. And I post so infrequently, and I actually to the point where I was kind of sad about it one day, and I was like, I need to post more, like, because I post a lot of stories, but they go away, and it's just like, I know you can put them as a highlight.
Why do you think for you that's changed?
I think a lot of it was like a little burnout. Yeah. And like,
it wasn't exciting anymore, too.
Yeah.
I feel like.
And it was like, I think that to some degree when it comes to the event stuff, it's like, you get a little jaded about it. You get a little like, I've seen this before. Oh, beautiful flowers. Okay. Like, how many pretty beautiful flowers can I post from events or weddings or whatever? And for me, because like, it's my personal, and there's an element to which my personal and my public, work like blend. Like, I have been always very intentional about like that my social media personally is a brand to a certain extent. And it's like, I've been thoughtful about that at times. And to the point where some people might not think I'm thoughtful, but like, I do choose to be very irreverent or very inappropriate sometimes, or just like, say, like I want people to understand that that's who I am, because that's who you will actually meet in real life. Like I could never have a super polished social media because I am not that person in real life. So it would be such a disconnect if you actually met me and were like, she's a fucking mess and swears a lot and her social media looks very different from that. And I think some of it was some of it is just like that the novelty of the events that I did got a little less. And then I think it really kind of took like a steep downhill during COVID because I just had so little to post about that felt good.
Yeah.
And I think prior to COVID, I had a lot of things, and it was like the highlight reel kind of thing. Like my highlight reel went away a little bit during that. Like I posted a lot about work stuff, and then like for a while I was posting a lot about traveling because I was doing a lot of that. And then during COVID I was posting a lot about being sad, and like that's only like I only want to do that so much, you know. And then I just never like picked up the habit again. So like just recently, like a few months ago, I was like, I just kind of want to like try to force myself to do it for no good reason. To like, I think also there was an element of like, it went from being something that you could do with no good reason to something that you had to have like tons of thought behind, or like very intentional intent.
What's your
like,
brand?
Yeah.
What's
like,
your strategy?
And like, what is this saying, or what does it mean? Or like, is it funny? Like, you know, it had to mean so much more. And I think that I've seen a lot of that with like younger generations of just like doing photo dumps that I really enjoy. Like, I'm just like, yeah, throw that out there. I want to see your stupid photos from like the last month or whatever. And I've been trying to embrace that a little bit more because I do kind of miss it, because I do love to look back at those like 2012, 2014 photos and be like, dang, I had a lot of photos back then, but they're great memories, you know? Like when Aria closed, going back to like build my own highlight reel from that, I could have made 17 of them. Like I had so many videos, so many pictures, like, and now I'm like, I don't have any of those anymore, hardly.
I have so many more photos and videos on my camera roll than I've ever posted. That's also the thing. I'm like, I'm not bad at taking photos. Why am I not posting this? There's so many layers to it, right? Yeah, it's the novelty wearing off. It's the like everybody at some level kind of knows that there's like social media strategy and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole thing that's like, this is nothing new either, but there's this phenomenon. I'm totally blanking on the phrase that they use for it, but it's like Facebook. How old is Facebook now? It's like 20 years old. So like a lot of us, when we joined Facebook over a decade ago, also, like, those highlight memories and stuff are, like, horrendous to look at sometimes.
Like, they're a little abusive sometimes.
There's this, like, phenomenon that happens where it's, like, through your life you've friended different family members, and you have exes in there maybe, or you have people from this organization you're a part of, and you have such a wide variety of people that you follow, and that there's this phenomenon where people are not posting in the feed that much because they don't know who it's for or who it's going to see it. So that's why they go to private messages, because it's like, now I'm just messaging Jessica, and I know exactly the context of our relationship and how inappropriate I can be with you, or like what we've talked about before, or like all of that. When you're putting it out in front of a lot of people, especially on a network like Facebook, it's like,
I don't need to see your shit. I don't need to see it all.
Yeah, and then it just makes you just, like, I don't know, like, the right way to communicate this, because I don't know if everybody has all the context, or
if they'll think it's funny, or if I'm going to get, like pushback on it, or or if it'll just open up a can of worms about something, especially if you're, like, if you're somebody who's, like, you know, you didn't go to this event, you went to this other one, like, yeah, now these people know you were here, or, like, I didn't go to my cousin's wedding, and I went to this other party, but I don't want my aunt to know that.
Skipped your cousin's wedding?
What? No, I mean, I'm sure I have.
Hypothetical, of course.
I have missed probably almost all of my cousin's weddings because I was at other people's weddings.
I wasn't trying to put you on blast.
No, I think I probably did it at some point. There was probably a real life example in there, but I have definitely had moments where I'm like, I can't post about this thing that I'm doing or want to post about because, like, I don't want someone's. I mean, to be totally frank with you, like. So I was sick. I was sick for like 2 weeks. I got very behind in my emails. I'm still behind on my emails. I still have a lot of emails to do. And in the last 2 days, I've almost posted something and then been like,
oh, they'll see it.
I owe that person an email and I'll feel guilty.
I'm a habitual, like, I'll write a message or something like that I want to put out there, and then I'll get to the end of it. I'll be like, this is stupid, and I'll delete it all.
Until the last, so the iPhone came out in 2007, the year I graduated college. So at that point, there was no Snapchat, TikTok, Uber, Airbnb, like all of these like billions of dollar organizations. But in the last, like 20 years is the only time in human history where we've ever been like expected to like be immediately responsive to people that we can be. Like I'm stealing a little of this from some stuff I saw like online this week, people ranting about this of like, it's an unhealthy way to live, that like you feel sometimes this expectation of like I have to answer this person right away, or I can't post something
well, even
on Instagram.
the social media guilt of like you seeing everyone else post and then being like, I should post too because I look stupid that I'm not doing anything cool or whatever.
You used to be able to just like leave the house and then you weren't by a phone,
right?
You know,
or like
which was awesome.
Or like that. Even on Instagram, like they didn't know you were online.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you haven't looked at their DM is not a big deal. But now you know I've been online.
Yeah.
And you've seen it. It says seen. Yeah. Leave them on red.
And I've posted a story, but I still haven't read yours.
It's all stuff we're gonna have to figure out, and people are gonna have to. I see a big chunk of people like wanting to kind of abandon it and kind of retake their lives a little bit and be connected into things that are like less digital. And we'll see. It's not gonna go away, but
no. But I feel like there's a little bit. I think almost like everything in life, there's a pendulum, right?
Yeah.
It's always kind of swinging back and forth, and like. Maybe some of it will settle in the middle and something else comes and upsets it again and sort of throws it off again. And it doesn't help that, like, as soon as we become, like, somewhat acclimated to it, these companies move the goalposts, right? Or, like, we go from it being, like, still images.
That's why you need me as a strategist.
Exactly.
I can tell you about that.
Yeah, we're bringing you in. You're hired.
You do a lot of consulting, like, small business auditing. Like, I will say that this is something in the event industry, because it is primarily made up of small business owners. Yeah. A lot of them struggle with social media.
Yeah, they don't have time to do all of the posting on all of the platforms and keeping up with stuff. I, like, very much empathize with it.
Yeah. Do you do, like, audits and stuff like that for people like that?
Yeah, I think, like, you know, it's everything from, like, and I probably should start doing it more of, like, classes for people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to learn things. Here are the, you know, best practices this quarter, or, like, things like that.
Speak at an ILEA event?
Yeah, or here are resources that if you do have time and want to read about it that are really great. But, like, yeah, sitting down with people and being like, it's okay. You're not a bad person. You're not failing. Like, this can help your business if you prioritize it, or if it's lines again with your audience or all those kinds of things. But, like, trying to give them, like, tactical things, like, start doing this a little bit more, stop doing this, think about it a little bit of in a different way so that you don't feel like you're constantly needing to feed the beast. Maybe it's once every other week you have an afternoon, or, you know, just different tactics like that too. Of just a lot of my work ends up being about, like, processes and internal, like, how to do this stuff. Like, how do you publish more content, or how do you keep up with all these you know, comments and things like that. So it's like a lot of it is going into teams and being like, you structure it differently. If you're a bigger team, if you're a small team, here are the 3 things I would do,
right?
And here are things I would stop doing. So
like scheduling it out for whatever amount of, which is what we have. We have no social media expert in our team, and it's rough some days. And, like, we sometimes manage social media for our clients for a while, and you can always tell when we're managing social media for our clients, because then our social media is like nothing.
Because shoemakers' kids don't have shoes.
Exactly. Yes. It's the worst.
Yeah.
It's the hardest. Yeah.
Yeah, social's difficult. What do you think about all the TikTok stuff about, like China stealing all of our information? And any thoughts on any of that? Because, like, I think a lot of people don't read it. No one even knows what's happening. I even heard recently that, like, if you use your phone and your phone has been connected to your, like, home computer, like, TikTok's getting all your information off of all your platforms. It's even, like, keylogging your shit. It knows your passwords, all of it.
Is that true?
That's pretty damn true. I don't know.
I
don't know.
Not sure.
It's true.
It's like you feel a little tinfoily over here, but
it's
give me a tinfoil hat.
I'll say it this way. I think a lot of companies, including U.S. companies, have access to a lot of data and have made mistakes with it and have abused power with it. I'll say as much as I can. I want to be like,
right.
make sure I'm within my bounds. But it's like, you remember a few years ago, like when Cambridge Analytica happened with Facebook. Yeah. Like, there was Russian interference with our elections using that platform. So part of the thing with is TikTok going to get banned and they're picking on them, and is it China and whatever, is like, there could be a problem there. There's a problem with all of them, though, and that needs to be addressed, and not just singling out a company that also, in my opinion, has had more openness. They're like, data servers are in the United States now. There's a lot of stuff they're putting in place that other companies, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, are not doing. So it's a way bigger conversation that I think a lot of the politicians that are working on that do not have a grasp on how a lot of this stuff works.
Totally.
And are making misinformed decisions about how to tackle something that is a big issue to think about, including all the things we've touched on, like the mental health of teenage girls and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like it needs to be not just one platform they're attacking. And one of the reasons I think they are attacking the platform of TikTok is because a lot of young people have gotten way more informed about what's happening in the world through it compared to other platforms.
Right.
And that level of access to knowledge can be a scary thing for people.
Yeah, there's that level of like democratization of knowledge, but also there's like the xenophobia side of it as well, right? Yep. It's a pretty easy win to like dunk on China right now. And they, in having a thorough, wide conversation about all of those elements and all of those things is a lengthy, time-consuming project, and it is not a fast win, and they're not interested in things that are not a fast win.
Alex, can you fact check the keystroke China TikTok
like
tracking
keystrokes? I'm not gonna lie, I don't think that's an easy thing to fact check on an internet.
I mean,
check that on.
It's it's a really tough thing though. It's like I have talked to people that work at every one of these platforms in my career, and
it's in the terms and conditions.
A lot of them don't know what's going on. But you hear stuff like, "Oh, your phones are listening to you and then targeting you with ads." I've gone back and forth on that over time because I've heard the platforms say that's not a thing. Then there's something really specific, but then you're like, the algorithms are getting really good at knowing what you like, and there's a thing called selective attention, and you see dozens and dozens and hundreds of ads every single day, and you just happen to notice the one because you notice something.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of layers to it.
Like when you buy a red car and you see red cars everywhere.
Yeah, but also they might be listening.
Oh. Yeah, but also
there is a lot of data behind all of these things that I am noticing now, and I don't have a working theory, but I can see that there is data going between apps now to recommend content on video platforms, and I don't know how it works, even being in this for like 13 years.
It's interesting. It's got a real like nobody sees the wizard sort of vibe to it, like a little hidden.
I think it's all important stuff to talk about and be like, let's have a thoughtful conversation about how we do this going forward, because it is important for so many areas. Yeah. So I don't know.
We've brought it full circle back to your hidden theme from the Creative Mornings. Like
it's all hidden.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I like it though.
This episode is sponsored by IMAV, an innovative and leading audiovisual company based in the Twin Cities. If you're looking to elevate your next event, all you have to do is reach out to the team at IMAV. They'll put together a package that not only fits your budget, but takes your event to the next level. IMAV strives to not only be a resource, but an asset to the success of your event. Whether you need video, audio, or lighting, the professionals at IMAV can execute and run your meeting or event flawlessly. Their team is a dream to work with and always deliver a final product that leaves guests blown away. Find them online at imav.pro. Use promo code EVENTLIFE when you contact them to receive 30% off all equipment rentals for your first event. Again, go to imav.pro to lock in the best audiovisual vendor for your next event. Cheers. So I'm going to read this thing. TikTok's privacy policy states that it automatically collects other information from users, including IP addresses, geolocation-related data, unique device identifiers, browsing and search history, and cookies. It also monitors the website's, the users visit and how they write, even if they aren't signed up, through basically cookies and other trackers. And then it says the company said that capability was for troubleshooting. So the web browser used within the TikTok app can track every keystroke made by its users. According to new research that is surfacing, blah, blah, Chinese video company, blah, blah.
It's just going to give you better content.
That's the thing. Hopefully that's the intent, right? But
the intent is advertising, to make more money on advertising. The more info they have on you, the more money these companies can make advertising and theoretically making their product better to advertise better. So it's going to be revenue at the end of the day.
That's what they want you to believe. Come on, let's go.
No, I'm out.
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to jump in for 1 second. Let's think about it this way. Everything is designed for power and everything is designed for money. Money gives you power. So therefore, I agree with him saying, hey, let's make some money because money makes power.
China's like the fucking arch nemesis of the U.S. right now, aren't they? Kinda.
Maybe.
Also, aren't they? I'm not
Maybe
doing
not.
this.
Isn't this a podcast about events? What the fuck?
That's a huge event. World War III is a huge event.
This is what happens.
No, just kidding.
This is what I get for being in a room full of men right now. Like, this is like...
I'm only being facetious.
I know,
but,
I know. I'm just giving you shit. Let's
no,
go back to
I mean,
gardens. I wanna talk about gardens.
let's actually go to the plant thing now because that's actually cool.
Transition to the plants.
Very smooth segue. You're welcome.
TikTok to plants. So how did you get interested in?
I'm on Plant
in
Talk.
Are you?
Oh yeah, it's fun.
What is that?
That's what you call your feed when it like leans a certain way. So if you're like on Event Talk, you see lots of event content, but I see a lot of plant content. Yeah.
So do I. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool. How did you get into it?
I grew up around gardens. My grandparents both had gardens. I just like remember growing up, running around the yard and eating carrots right out of the garden, right? Like lightly hosed off.
Yep.
And my family had a garden growing up, and like, I don't know. I just, I think growing stuff was always like, I just assumed everybody kind of lived like that. I think a lot of people did, especially in the Midwest.
Back then.
Yeah, and I think after college, I was renting a place, and I just was like, it's time. I don't know what it was that spurred me on. I was like, I need to start gardening. It's fun, like grow some tomatoes and whatever. And been doing that for a lot of years, and ended up helping a lot of friends like know where to plant stuff in their yards, or starting plants for them, or just in general encouraging people to go to farmers markets and being really involved in that. And so recently started a business kind of under the header of like garden consulting. Cool. So a lot like my social media consulting, where I come in and try to understand people's goals. I want to do that with gardens too. I think it's maybe part of me is like pushing against the digital by having a physical, slow, patient sort of discipline.
Yeah.
Like something in the dirt to be away from screens. But part of me is also just like, I think more people should know what their food looks like and where it comes from. And I don't think it's a great idea for us to like buy salad that was grown in California. I do it sometimes still too. Like, nobody's perfect. We all go to grocery stores, but in Minnesota, we have a phenomenal farmers market scene. And there's a huge ability to be like, what could you do in a 3x3 or a 4x4 garden space in your yard? And a lot of people have that, or a container or whatever. And I just realized that as I was helping more people do this and look at their yards and figure out where the sun is and all that kind of stuff, I was like, I don't know, let's see if this could be kind of a little business thing. So I don't want to diminish it like it's a small
I like
business,
how
but,
you kind of connected it to what you know from the social media side. You already said, like, you come into it and it's like you kind of assess, where do you put this, and you've learned a model for something that you do with the social media, and you've adapted it to this other thing that you started. And I think that's really cool. There's this old guitar book that I read a long time ago, and it was like this, I don't know, he's like Chinese or something, but it was like, and I don't mean to go back to the China thing, but only because it was one of those like those old, like the sayings that they have, these old proverbs type of a thing, like a Chinese proverb. It was like, from one thing learn many things is the saying, and it's so simple, but it's like, from learning a process, you can adapt that process to this other thing, and it actually translates quite well, and you can use it as a model for lots of different things. So
it's the creativity thing again. It's kind of taking stuff from a different discipline, and so I mean, it's a newish business to me. I've like started to help some people consult. I want to know, like, what do you eat normally? What do you cook with? Who's gonna garden this? How much time do you have? What does your yard look like? And can you actually grow things when there's shade, or just understanding that, and then helping them set up. Some people have garden beds already, and some people just have a yard they want to turn into a garden. So I think it's like one of those things for a lot of people, it's really intimidating at first, like, what soil do you use and when do you put seeds in? And I know a lot of that from just doing it personally over the years. And so offering that to people in the context of, like, I think especially in the last few years, people are becoming way more aware of where their food comes from and the packaging that comes with it, and food prices go up. And I'll say this as a caveat, like, gardening doesn't always save you money.
Right. Maybe in small ways,
right.
but not necessarily in the
herbs
overarch.
for sure.
Yeah.
Herbs for sure.
Yeah.
Like that's one you should do an herb garden. You will save money instead of buying herbs from the store. But I think people are just more interested in knowing where their food comes from, it being local, and maybe at a minimum just having a little bit that you can go out, pick some kale at lunchtime, bring it inside and eat it. It's going to sound really, if you know anybody that does gardening, it's annoying. Like, have you ever tasted a tomato from the garden?
Right.
How much better it is than the grocery store?
Right.
It is so true, though.
Legitimately.
So I want people to be connected to that. I think it's like a great time to do it, and it's a cool model. So I'm going through actually like a certification program of someone that has designed, been a garden consultant, and has training people all over the world to do this. So it's like, it's systems, it's adding on to what I already know and kind of going through this, and
that's cool.
making the most of our Minnesota summers.
Yeah, it's really cool too, like just the it's a skill set that's almost like a lost art.
Yeah.
Growing food. Like so many people are like, I don't have a green thumb, and it's like they need water and soil and sunlight. That's it. There's not a lot of other science behind it. I mean, there is, but like
it was a super common thing, especially like after World War II, to have a kitchen garden, or they're called victory gardens. Like, to be able to have some of that to supplant like what you bring in for groceries and stuff like that. And again, like our grandparents all had those, and they were like the original hipsters. Like they were canning and fermenting.
They had a lot of beards.
Oh,
like
100% canning
and growing. And now I think a lot of I'm a millennial. I think a lot of millennials, connecting this to all of our conversations tonight, are feeling like, is it supposed to be all online? Am I supposed to just be on social media? Like, what are the real life tangible events and experiences and things in real life that make life look kind of different? And maybe I want more of that. So they're like discovering these lost arts of like, I'm growing my own lettuce now, So it's like, it's kind of cool to see that happening, and I think it's like a positive and healthy trend, because it's also like physically healthy, good for you too. Like there's weird studies of being outside a certain number of hours or minutes with bare feet on soil,
grounding on the ground,
and like hugging trees and stuff is like a real thing. And so I don't know, I'm like all about it. I'm like, let's do it. Like, let's be out in the sun, enjoy your yard, makes bonds with your neighbors, because maybe you're gonna have too many zucchini and stuff like that. And
trading,
I'm into it. I'm embracing my old man.
You are getting old, dude.
But it's like also not an old man thing anymore. That's
cool.
It's
a hip and cool thing.
Urban farms and access to food and vertical garden. Like there's a lot of cool also innovation happening in this space too, which is fascinating.
So Elon Musk's brother is all about that vertical garden stuff.
Yeah.
He's got a brother. Did you know that?
Nope.
See, there's a lot you could learn from me, Jess.
It's I
don't know. That's one tonight. Corona too many.
It's an innovative space, and it's also like an old school space. It's like, okay, just teaching people like you also don't have to be afraid of it.
Right.
It's there's some simpleness to it if you're like really clear with how you time it and set it up and things like that. But a lot of people are frustrated because they like go to the Home Depot or they go to a big box store and they like buy a bunch of stuff and throw it all in the ground, and there's not really like a rhyme or reason necessarily, but the excitement is there. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, well, nothing really grew the right way. And it's like
there is a method to the madness.
Yeah, it's like it's simple but very much not simple, I mean, I grew up in the country. I can farm. I have done I used to pick rocks in the cornfield when I was a kid. Yep. Which is just like when you aren't from a rural community, to say I used to pick rock, that is like the weirdest statement in the world. Yeah. But anyways, I don't have much of a green thumb. I struggle with it. And I have truly, I had like a large portion of my yard converted to a native garden. Yeah. So, cause I hate mowing. Right. Yeah. So I was like, fuck it. So actually mine was done by Northern Natural Gardens, who Carl Kluse, I don't know if you know him. He used to be tandem tree photography. He left the photography game to start a native garden like company, landscaping company, and they start from seed. So it takes a little while for it to like really take off. And this is the first year that my garden is like, it's like there. It is ready to go already, which is amazing. And like it's not even June yet and it's already taken off. But I've tried to do more vegetable gardening and stuff and struggle with that, partially because my yard is full of bunnies up the wazoo.
Same.
So they just destroy everything.
They're brutal.
They are. That's why my garden...
So cute and so brutal.
So terrible. Even my native gardens had a little bit of a hard time taking off because they were just like raising it to the ground. It's like I had a community of sheep living in my backyard or something. So it's hard. And it's like that, and then, you know, if you're someone like myself that sometimes struggles with like, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. I'm like, oh, those tomato plants I haven't watered in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Forgot about those, you know? So it's like, it's easy, but definitely not easy. So like, I think it's a valuable tool that you could be giving people for sure.
Well, I think some of it is like, we all spend quite a bit of time mowing our lawns. Here's another fact you'll probably have to fact check me on, but I think it's like 800 million gallons of gasoline a year in the United States to mow lawns. So you're like, huh. And most lawns are not native, and most lawns don't help pollinators. Yeah. And it's like, there's the time. I mean, that's where you can get some time back potentially too, like watering. So I don't know. I think it's about being conscious and present and helping people think through how to like help with climate change and all of the things. Like it's very important stuff. So you can do it. I think you should keep at it.
I'm gonna try again this year. I started doing some more indoor herb gardening this winter. Yeah. My problem too with it is like my cilantro always goes to flowering. Like I can't pick it fast enough, or like it's also like I don't cook enough at home and all this kind of stuff.
If it goes to flowering, then it goes to seed, and you just reproduce those same
coriander.
Seeds.
That's where that comes from.
True. Yeah.
Tip with cilantro is it likes cool weather, so you got to do it in spring and in the fall. Summer it doesn't like.
That makes sense. Okay. I did plant outside in one of
these.
This
is now a gardening podcast.
I know, right?
I'm taking over.
This isn't the first time this has happened by any means.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's all good.
But I had planted in like one of these planter boxes outside like 2 years ago, chives. Yeah. And they have come back every year. I've never had to replant them, and I was like, okay, these little chives are thriving over here. Like they love this.
That might be your key, is finding those plants that do come back every year.
Yeah.
Oregano, thyme, chives.
Yep. Yeah, but I like cilantro. That's my problem. And basil. Those are my two go-tos. So I've been growing the basil inside, which I have been pretty successful with that. And then the cilantro I just tried adding in, and it seems like it's doing okay so far, but we'll see. I struggle. I'm a terrible, I love plants. I love flowers. I love all of them. I just have the shortest attention span in the world. And so I have to have plants that will be very hardy and are okay with being neglected. I'm just not good at it. I know it's no mow May, right? But because my yard is so much native plants, Carl actually, when he was doing my consulting, he was like, you don't really have to do no mow May because your whole yard is 50.
Jury is also out if that's actually helpful.
Yeah, exactly. That too. He said the same thing. But 50% of my yard is this pollinator garden stuff. So, and all my neighbors do mow. And so I didn't. And I was
you're that person.
I was.
Like me.
Oh my God. My yard looked raggedy, literally to the point. And then I've been sick and all this stuff. And finally, my neighbor mowed it for me. Man. It was so kind and so nice. And I was so embarrassed, but I was like, I will take it. Thank you, sir. It was so bad. So yeah, my yard's a little rough looking.
It's all right.
I got into plants, mostly trees though, during COVID. And I think that was for me working at Aria. Shit felt like it was always going up, and it was busy. And then it all kind of just chilled. And I was just playing guitar, watching YouTube, and I discovered this guy, Huron's Bonsai, out of the UK. And is this older dude? He's still around. He still makes videos, and he just it's again, it's the branding thing. It's the cheapest. Just puts his iPhone. The audio kind of sucks, but he teaches you cool stuff and takes you around, basically for the journey on him, here's this little tree, I'm gonna chop some stuff off, and this is gonna be a bonsai, and here's this tree from 60 years ago. And that's what it became for me. It became a meditation type of a thing, where it was I was doing all this busy stuff, and it was all like life was just insane, and I was having kids, and it was just everything was nuts. And then I got like 7 months to just kind of chill, and I got really into like bonsai.
Yeah.
And my brother has some acreage out in right by the thing that you're about to start doing soon here.
Medina project.
The Medina project out in Corcoran.
Yeah.
And so I started a little tree farm out there, and it originally started like, hey, we should grow some chestnuts, because he's like deer hunting and deer and just wildlife and stuff in his yard and all that. But then I was like, shit, the American chestnut is like extinct.
Yeah.
But there's still some, you can still find them. So that like became a huge interesting thing. And there's like an American chestnut like association that like is trying to revive them and has like created, it's called like the Darling 59 or something like that. It's like a offshoot, like a spliced, like they've
grafted.
No, not grafted.
Okay.
They've terrible with my words right now, but
all those coronas.
They've crossed it. Like they basically crossed it with like wheat or something like that. So it's like just the offshoot of what it was, and it's more blight resistant. And blight's killing all the trees. So, and it happened from like somebody bringing like a bug over from like China or Japan or the UK or somewhere. I don't even know. I don't even know where it is. Some guy brought over this disease, this disease that infested and killed off all of the American chestnuts, essentially. So
I actually did know I did know they were extinct, because I remember listening to a podcast one time where they were talking about how the songs about like chestnuts roasting over an open fire is a thing that people used to do.
Change the lyrics.
Alex, can you look that up where that happened at? I just don't want to start saying stupid shit.
Start sounding super
I keep saying China, but I don't know where it is. I just really want to clarify. I just know it was somewhere, and I was like, fuck, I don't know.
But it
we were talking about China.
Like they used to be in abundance here, and then now they're not, and that song made way more sense back then when they were around.
Yeah, because like people hear it now.
I've never had a chestnut.
Who has ever had a chestnut roast? I mean, I guess you go to Europe, you can get it. But.
Well, you'll find them here, but they're actually the ones you find here are Chinese chestnuts. So that is a thing that's legit.
Okay.
And they're actually very blight resistant. So
it's like the bananas. The same thing happened with bananas.
Yeah. We're going down tangents. Let's talk about bananas.
I know. And how like do you know about this? Like the taste. Okay, so you know how the banana taste of like candy tastes like not like bananas, right?
Right.
It's like very, very sweet. It almost tastes artificial. I mean, it is
artificial. Yeah, 100%.
However, that taste profile, that flavor taste, is modeled after a type of banana that used to exist, but it was wiped out by blight. So there was a banana at one time that tasted like that. And so banana candy back then, right?
And the current banana is being wiped out right now as well.
Yes, because
so
they don't
the one you think of in the supermarket.
There's too much homogenation within the banana community.
That's super interesting. Lay it on me.
It's native to Eastern Asia, where it happens to be reported in China, Japan, and Korea.
The chestnut or the thing that wiped it out?
I can't say it. The Cryphonectria parasitica.
Oh, okay. That bug.
Y'all, when you asked me to come on this podcast, I wasn't imagining we'd end up on chestnuts and bananas, right? But here we are. Hey, and I'm not mad about it.
It's creative evenings. Here we are. Creative evenings.
All tied together.
See, I'm not crazy with my China talk. God damn it.
We're going to need to
that's why I was like,
next episode.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm not anti-China or anything like that either. So it just happened to come up.
Wow, it was doing really good on TikTok until this episode.
yeah. Our TikTok just took a huge nosedive. No, I think that's cool that what you're doing with the plants. I think that's really fucking sweet. I
do like the juxtaposition of the like social media screen time and then the like in the earth.
Yeah.
Like those kind of two things, and having that balance I think is cool.
I think it's great to do things in life that you're really passionate about, and if your career aligns with it, that's awesome. But I think it's also an opportunity to think about maybe the thing I do in my career, whether it's in events or marketing or whatever, maybe there is a opposite sort of hobby that I could have. That's why I think a lot of people have gotten into trees and plants and bonsai. I've heard, friends are like, I'm painting now. that work in marketing because I'm like looking at a screen all day, and it's like
it's part of that balance.
That can be a great way to think about opening up new creative avenues to inspire yourself and fill yourself up differently, and
I don't know
not feel so burnt out.
Well, yeah, I don't know if this makes any sense, but in some ways, you could relate it in some ways to the blight situation, right? Like, if your thing is too homogenous, if your life is too homogenous, like, if something comes in and wipes that out, like, you're done, you know?
Yep.
Like, if you get burned out on the social media, if you get burned on, I've thought about this often because a lot of my life revolves around events. Like, I don't have any huge hobbies or passions outside of that, or I haven't in the past. And I suddenly realized one day, I was like, most of my social network is people in events. Most of my, things that I do outside of work are still sort of work related. Like, a lot of the things that I do still relate to events or sort of revolve around that. And like, when I'm feeling very, very burned out on that and like this feeling that blight or whatever about it, like, I don't have an outlet to go to outside of that. So I've been trying to diversify my portfolio mentally and physically.
Yeah, you need that balance.
You obviously love a lot of what you do, so
I
it's
do.
like a very lucky thing.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, but I think that's really good to recognize that. It's like, what else am I doing to feed things into my mind and spirit that give me a renewed energy so I can go back to those other things more strong and full. So
and have a like stronger, more resilient like mental health sort of outlook on thing, which I think is important. So
yeah, you can see a couple of the little plants over here.
Those are all he is doing.
That's a little bonsai up there.
A little decoration in the back. That's good.
Yeah. I don't know. That's all I gotta say about plants. You killed it, Jess. No,
I know. I'm sorry.
No, I think the balance is definitely like needed, and I think that's what it was for me. Like, it was, everything was going crazy, and then it hit a wall. And what balanced me out, and I mean, it was chaotic too in the beginning of COVID because you're like, am I gonna die?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm just gonna chill in my house and learn about. Is my industry
gonna implode and never come back again? And
it was a lot of fear kind of in the beginning, and for me it was just like chill, just learning about something new. And I think there's that creative too with like the bonsai, because like you're literally shaping this thing, and usually trees outlive humans, and so it's like this thing that you could start now. And I think as like a dude, I don't know if it's a dude thing or just like a humanistic thing, but like I have this like this, I need to create things. I need to build something. I need to leave something here when I'm not here anymore. That's what it was when I was making music. Like, I want to have something that can outlive me, essentially. So like the bonsai thing really hit. The music really resonates with me because it's like something, and it's not really even tangible. Like, it's just something that you can listen to, but it's something that can outlive us as creators, as inventors, as just people. So I think that was for me, huge piece of like anything creative. I think I can get behind it, which is cool. Yeah. So well, shit, thanks for coming on.
So we covered a wide range of topics today. Welcome to our new podcast, Creative Evenings.
You flow with the conversation. You learn some new stuff. Now I'm thinking about bonsai and all the
You should try a couple little bonsais. I can actually, I got too many. I'll throw you one or two.
All right.
Come to Creative Mornings next week.
Creative Mornings.
I'm gonna bring you
and
one.
You can hand off a bonsai.
There's one every month. Come whenever you can. Don't feel bad when you can't come.
Are they like a first Tuesday or what kind of?
Usually the third Friday.
Third Friday.
Yeah, of every month. So, but it's fun. It's a great place to meet people, and
No, it sounds awesome. I'm gonna definitely see you there at some point. Thanks so much, Drew.
Thanks for having me.
So Creative Mornings /MSP is where .com. Sorry, creativemornings.com/MSP.
Yep.
Is there a Minneapolis St. Paul Instagram specifically for Creative Mornings, or is it just the?
There is. Yeah,
okay.
And that's all linked on that page and stuff too.
Perfect.
So whatever way you like keeping up with stuff, that's a great way to do it.
Do you have a anything you want to plug for your garden business, or like a name, or?
Yes, I'm just kind of getting it like
new.
incorporated a little bit. I do have some stuff going on, but if you just Google my name,
Yeah,
and reach out,
which we know now doesn't have a silent G.
Gneiser.
Yes.
It's all connected. Cool. Soon there will be more things out.
Okay, good.
Yes,
good. Maybe by the time we have this actually out, then it'll just be...
Yeah, hit me up.
There you go.
I'm out there on social, so it's like just chatting with me about whatever you want to chat about.
Send him those DMs.
Exactly.
Slide into his DMs, ladies. Just kidding, men. All of us.
Everybody.
Awesome. Thanks so much again.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the podcast. Hit the like and follow button to stay updated on our latest episode. If you have ideas of topics or guests you'd like us to interview, drop us a comment, and we'll see you next time.